Perfect. Thank you so much, Eric. So we're just going to start off with a little introduction about myself. My name is Shivani, and I am a current third year dental student at Ohio State University. And with undergrad, I started off in the University of Cincinnati, did 4 years there. I went to Mason. If anyone is familiar with Ohio, I went to Mason for high school. During my undergrad, I started off as more of a pre-med path. And I think that's very typical for a lot of people that start dental school. They start on a pre-med path and kind of find their way into dentistry, whether that be because you liked healthcare and don't necessarily like the lifestyle of a physician or some any other reason. That for me was the biggest reason. I really liked the idea of healthcare. I really liked providing care and service, but I worked as a scribe and knew that the hours and the years that it took to go into medical school and residency and fellowship and all that wasn't necessarily right for me. So that's kind of how I ended up in dentistry. And in undergrad, I majored in philosophy and medical sciences, which we'll kind of talk more about. Some classes to keep in mind while you're in undergrad. And then I took a gap year. I worked as a dental assistant for a year, and to be honest, probably the most rewarding year thus far. And 3 years into dental school now. And feel free anytime to just drop questions into the chat, and Erica will answer them. If she can't, then I can also kind of get them too. So today we're kind of going to go through a yearly plan. We'll go through exactly what I think is the best way to approach undergrad year by year. It doesn't necessarily mean that you had to have done it in this order, and doesn't necessarily mean that if you missed a step along the process that you are behind or anything. So this is just kind of a more general plan to keep in mind, and then we'll kind of talk more about like specific scenarios if you guys have questions in regards to your scenarios. So we'll start with the first year. So as a freshman, um, a lot of people come with very different scopes from their high school experiences. Whatever helped you end up in dentistry, always keep that in mind, but never let that be what is pushing you throughout it. So remember that when you're choosing a major, you don't all have to do biology. You don't all have to do chemistry. I loved my philosophy major that I did, and there were so many classes that I took in my philosophy major that I was able to speak about in interviews. Specifically, there was a class that I took about aesthetics, which is a field of philosophy. We were able to kind of look into why society places value on certain aesthetics, why society places value on like the idea of like proportions and beauty and things like that. And if you turn that phase, dentistry is a lot of that. And when I actually took that class, I wasn't even pre-dent at that time. I was more on a pre-med path, but I really liked the idea of philosophy. So I just took that class. And that I think also kind of helped me figure out where the next steps are that I want to take in my career. So first point, when you're choosing a major, pick something that you actually enjoy, because then you're able to take these classes that you're going to be able to talk about in your interviews or in when you're meeting people, just networking, you'll speak way better, and the passion that you have will come across a lot better when you're doing a major that you actually enjoy. Whereas if you're doing biology and you're just like, okay, here I am, like I have to come to class every day, that might not necessarily be something that reflects as highly when you're talking about it. And in this, think really outside the box. Think, what type of dentist do you want to be if you already know you're on a pre-dent path, or what type of clinician you want to be if you're still on a pre-med path trying to figure out like if you want to go another route or pre-dentistry is the right for you. Think what type of clinician you want to be, and at the end of the day, that will also help you determine a major. So there's various different types of dentists. There's people that are more analytical, that like more like the physics type. So that would probably be more of the orthodontist. So if that's something that you're considering, maybe consider more of a physics route so you can kind of understand the mechanisms and things like that. If you're someone that is really kind of like have shadowed a cosmetic dentist before and you really like that, maybe consider more of a philosophy route just to understand the core values of people, understand some of those ethics and things like that. If you're someone that really likes surgery, maybe go more into a biochemistry route so you can kind of understand that. So just kind of keep in mind what type of dentist you want to be, and that can help you choose a major. And in the first year, you don't have to make any extravagant strides. Just remember that because I think anyone on a pre-health path, we feel like we have to like go on this journey and be continuously like jumping through these hoops. Just remember that that doesn't necessarily have to happen. Um, just keep in mind that the exploration you make in undergrad can help you make the right decisions as you're going into dental school or going into the years after that. And some of those relationships that you are able to gain while you're exploring, I think is also um, something to keep in mind. So a lot of people that now that we're in dental school, a lot of people say they wish they went back and considered more of a business route. And I think that's something to keep in mind for sure when you're in undergrad, especially if you're someone that moved to dentistry to with the intent of owning your own practice one day. You don't actually learn a lot of business classes while you're in dental school. So maybe keep that in mind when you're picking a major in undergrad, that maybe take a more of a business or take a minor in business or a double major in some kind of business route so that you kind of have that knowledge when you come to dental school and then it kind of flows and makes more sense when you graduate and are trying to practice. Also, in regards to exploration, look into other paths because at the end of the day, when come interview time, they're going to say, how do you know dentistry is the right for you? And to have the correct answer to that, you have to kind of know why you don't want to do other things. So make sure you're exploring other career paths so you can see why that's not the right fit for you. And as always, just maintain your GPA. You can do a lot of things, but if you don't have the right stats, a lot of schools will kind of give you the side eye and not necessarily look at you as the most credentialed applicant. So going into your second year, this will be the year that you kind of really want to focus on your academics, kind of take most of your hard classes during this time, and you want to hit those requirements that are more those like biology, chemistry. So some of those classes that for sure you want to take before you apply to dental school are bio, chem, OChem, physics, biochemistry, microbiology, and each of those should 100% have a lab. And some of the things that people don't keep in mind is if you took some classes in high school and you got like AP credits or something like that, you want to make sure that the dental school that is your like ideal school will actually accept those because come time to apply, some dental schools will say, okay, we won't accept that unless you took it in undergrad. So make sure you're kind of checking with the admissions for those dental schools, or even like you can ask, most Leland coaches will know that too. So when you sign up for a session, just make sure you're kind of asking those coaches too, to be like, okay, like, do you think that this is a reasonable school for me to apply to? Is there any classes that I should retake? Make sure you keep that in mind. Also, as part of the academics, some schools will have requirements for anatomy, and not that isn't incorporated into every school's normal pre-dent path. So make sure that you're looking at those schools beforehand. And the transition between your freshman and sophomore year is a really good time to just take a look at some schools that you like and see what their requirements are, because your sophomore and junior year is a really good like stepping stone for you to kind of keep make sure that you have the best application you can. And then the second point I have on here is to stop the exploration and start more narrowing down things you want to do. Consistency is the biggest thing that dental schools like to see in applicants. They want to see that you started something and kind of stuck through with it and developed as a person in that process. So if you are joining a club, make sure that, okay, your freshman year, yeah, it's amazing for you to be a general member, but that second year or that third year, make sure you narrow clubs that you actually like. You can join 20 clubs as a freshman, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you need to stay in all 20 of them as a sophomore. Pick your top 5, top 3, and kind of make sure you're attending those meetings and see how you can go above and beyond in those positions that you're there. So that would be kind of the biggest thing that I keep seeing in people that I have been able to coach is they're not very consistent with their experiences is they kind of join something, let it go, join something, let it go. But keep that in mind. And you also want to get the three key things, which is volunteering, research, and leadership. Those are your three parts of the application that a lot of schools will make sure that you have. And I think a lot of um, people don't necessarily see research as like a big in the field of dentistry, but you don't necessarily have to do dental research. Any kind of research that is appealing to you. So it can be like if you're someone that doesn't necessarily like to be sitting in a lab, you can do more psychology research.